WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
Are you interested in reaching the WFYI audience while supporting the programming you love? Become a sponsor today. Learn more at wfyi.org/sponsor.
This is WFYI News Now. It's May 14th, and I'm Drew Daudelin. On today's show, a group of states co-led by Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita sues the EPA over its recent carbon rule. Democratic Representative Rita Fleming resigns her Statehouse seat effective immediately, and the number of recent Indiana high school graduates heading to college is stagnant.
Just half of Indiana high school graduates went to college in 2022, a steep decline from the rate a decade ago.
Those stories coming up, but first, which Indiana communities are most vulnerable to climate change? One of our listeners was curious. Gabriel Filippelli is the executive director of the Indiana University Environmental Resilience Institute. Filippelli says communities in low-lying areas may struggle with flooding and remain more vulnerable to climate change. He also says urban areas in the state tend to be more sensitive to heat.
Particularly in cities with a lot of what we call gray infrastructure, so not much in the way of forests and trees within the urban environment, mainly that the cities which have neighborhoods that are proximal to industries and roads and so forth.
Filippelli says every city and community in the state is different, and their challenges vary.
South Bend its extreme heat days are pretty minimal, and we project them to increase somewhat, but not all that much. But they're really prone to flooding, and they're going to get a little bit worse flooding-wise in the coming decades. When you go down to Evansville, they're going to become much hotter. Flooding might not be as much of an issue, but heat will.
Filippelli also points out that communities that already experience vulnerabilities, such as low-income communities, may face more of the effects of climate change. And a group of states co-led by Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita is suing the Environmental Protection Agency over its recent carbon rule. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Violet Cumber-Weiland reports the coalition says the EPA's expectations for reducing carbon emissions would radically transform the nation's electric grid.
Republican attorneys general for more than half of U.S. states and the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association filed similar lawsuits on Thursday. The EPA rule would require many new gas and existing coal plants to either eliminate or capture 90% of their carbon emissions by 2032. Plants that do not comply would have to exit the grid by 2039. This capturing would require the installation of carbon capture and sequestration technologies. The EPA says this technology is cost-effective, but some opponents say it is too costly and not ready to be placed in plants across the country. In a statement, Attorney General Todd Rokita said these new rules could decrease reliable energy sources and increase energy bill prices for Hoosiers. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Violet Cumber-Weiland.
Democratic Representative Rita Fleming announced Monday she is resigning her Statehouse seat effective immediately. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports on the process to replace her, both in her current seat and on the ballot.
Fleming, a three-term lawmaker and grandmother of 15, says she's stepping down to focus on her family. The retired OBGYN helped lead the fight at the Statehouse to expand access to contraceptives and authored a law banning pregnant inmates from being shackled. A private Democratic precinct caucus will meet within 30 days to elect someone to serve out the rest of Fleming's term, which ends in November. Fleming was unopposed in her primary election last week, and a private caucus will also have to choose a replacement for her on November's general election ballot. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the Statehouse.
And for our final story today, the number of recent Indiana high school graduates heading to college is stagnant, a worrying trend as the state struggles to boost educational attainment. From our education desk, Dylan Piers-McCoy has more on the newly released data.
Just half of Indiana high school graduates went to college in 2022, a steep decline from the rate a decade ago. The latest data was just released by the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. The commission has made boosting college enrollment a top priority. People with college degrees typically earn significantly more than those with high school diplomas, and the state's economy needs more educated workers. but the college-going rate has remained stubbornly low for 3 years. The decline is part of a national trend. Parents and students are concerned about the high cost of college, and polls show that many young people believe a high school diploma is all they need for financial security. I'm Dylan Piers-McCoy.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Abriana Herron, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Drew Daudelin. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. If you liked today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.
Public radio is here for you and because of you. So donate now by going to WFYI.org/give. And thank you.